All right, let's talk a little NBA basketball right now. Trust me, we'll get back to the Aggie T-shirt fiasco. And yes, I know Texas wasn't on the T-shirt either, but that actually I buy. When they say that was intentional and that they were going to put it on the back, I actually kind of sort of believe that. The Missouri part's not working for me. But anyway, let's set that aside, and we'll talk a little basketball right now. I'm joined by the founder of the ProBasketballTalk.com, Jacob Noble. Jacob, good to have you on the program. How are you?
Oh, fantastic today, Travis. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Let's start with the Houston Rockets. They look to be kind of a team that was on the move. They got into a little bit of a winning streak, move all the way up to the 6th seed in the West. Turn around, they've now lost 4 games in a row. They're on the outside looking in right now. They're tied with Phoenix for that 8th spot, but they don't have the tiebreaker. 5 games left for each team. Who do you think gets in, the Suns or the Rockets?
You know what? I think the Suns do, and a lot of people aren't really looking at Steve Nash's performance this past month, and he's playing phenomenal basketball at how old is he now? Is he a card-carrying member of senior citizen group? I don't know right now, but, the way he's playing, you wouldn't think he was that old. So I think Phoenix is actually going to get that spot.
Does it make a whole lot of difference? Does either one of those two teams have a shot at beating San Antonio or Oklahoma City?
Oh, absolutely not. And I think if either of those teams won a game, that'd be something to celebrate because the Spurs and the Thunder are just on another level than everybody else, and they're showing it.
We're talking with Jacob Noble from ProBasketballTalk.com, the ProBasketballTalk.com. What happened with the Rockets? They were playing pretty good basketball. They were streaking a little bit, actually, and kind of going in the right direction, and then all of a sudden things changed. 4 losses in a row. What do you think the biggest difference has been?
I don't think they were defending as well as they could have. They've let their opponents score over 100 the last few games. They kind of controlled their own destiny, which is tough to see as a Rockets fan. You go in and you play the Suns, you play the Nuggets twice, and if you walk away with 3 wins, you're sitting pretty with a nice playoff appearance. But unfortunately, that didn't happen for them. But they still have 5 more games left in the regular season, where they can sneak in the playoffs. That's the beauty of this year with the Western Conference being 1 or 2 games separating all the teams.
Jacob, I mean, obviously getting into the playoffs is better than not getting into the playoffs, but is there a huge difference, at least from a organizational standpoint, as far as where they're going to be next year or the year after that, whether they finish 8th and end up going out in the first round or they finish 9th and end up with the 10th or 11th pick in the draft? Is there a huge difference between those two things?
There is. It depends. If you're a young team and you kind of have your core established, I think the playoff experience is valuable. But if you don't really have a superstar, and I'm taking the Rockets there because I don't think they have a superstar, and they're a destination that's hard to land free agents going forward. So if I'm them, I would hope not to make the playoffs and test my luck with a little lottery magic because making the playoffs is not going to do much for them. They kind of have a veteran team. They have a lot of salary on their hands. A lot of it's coming off this year, but a lot of free agents don't talk about Houston. So I think they really need to land good draft picks and draft well, and luckily they have a fantastic general manager who, can find, gold out of other people's trash, like Goran Dragic.
Jacob, I wonder, if you look around and you think, you look at the teams that are the best teams in the league, and you obviously look at Miami and they have lots of stars. You look at Chicago and they have Derrick Rose. You look at Oklahoma City and they've got Westbrook and Durant. And you look on, Tim Duncan's there, Kobe Bryant's there, Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, and the teams that are near the top, they have star players. Is that the only way to do it, or is there a way where you can get pieces that fit really well together, players that play well together, maybe to make a run at a championship without that linchpin in the middle, without that star player?
I think it's rare to do that. And, the last team that comes to anybody's mind that, built a team without a quote-unquote superstar was the Detroit Pistons. And, they did it with a lot of veterans, coming out of bad situations, and it was kind of, the perfect storm for Detroit. They had the experience, they had a good coach in hand, and, they got it done. But if you look at history, more so than not, you need one of those top 5 players to win a championship. It's very rare that, solid teams come out and win, especially in this day and age.
We're speaking with Jacob Noble from the ProBasketballTalk.com. What do you make of the Hornets getting sold to Tom Benson? He owns the Saints. Is that good for the team? It's obviously good for the city that they have somebody that's committed to the area, but is there anything to be learned from his ownership of the Saints that could be translatable to his new ownership with the Hornets?
I think any owner is good for the New Orleans Hornets. It's better than the league owning them. It's something that the league didn't want, but unfortunately they had to take it over. Because of circumstances there. But anytime you get an owner who has experience in owning a franchise and, owning a franchise with success as the Saints have had, although, they're in the media for wrong reasons these days, I can't equate those issues that are happening today with the Saints to what could happen with the Hornets going forward. I don't kind of see that going on. But, anytime you got an owner with money and who's willing to do what he can do to win, that's good for the team. And obviously, as you just mentioned, it's phenomenal for New Orleans. You got someone from there, knows the area, is planning to keep the team in New Orleans. So that's good news for everybody involved.
Looking around the league, and we're speaking with Jacob Noble. Jacob, you look at the Clippers, and the Clippers have been an interesting team all season long because when they made the deal for Chris Paul, they came out of the gates very, very quickly. They were one of the more fun teams to watch. They were one of the better teams in the league. And then Chauncey Billups goes down, and all of a sudden the team kind of flatlined. They played really uninspired basketball for the better part of 2 months. They seem to have figured some stuff out. They beat Oklahoma City for the third time last night. And all of a sudden, they're not just a trendy pick, but they're a pick that maybe as you look at the matchups that they're going to get, they get Memphis in the first round probably. Could they win a series, maybe 2 series in the West?
If they're not playing Memphis, they have a chance to win a series. And nobody wants to play Memphis. And, we can talk on that for a couple of seconds. But I really like the Memphis Grizzlies a lot. I think they're the number one sleeper in the West. They were a bit hard with the injury bug with Zach Randolph early on, and they kind of stayed afloat. And, they got Rudy Gay this year. But jumping back to the Clippers, the thing with the Clippers to me is they don't seem to have a team identity. They got all this talent, but they still lack something. You got 2 guys that kind of do the same thing in Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. Neither of them can score when they need to or make a basket when they need to. I'm not really impressed with their wing defenders. They kind of got aging wing defenders in Caron Butler. Randy Floyd comes off the bench for them. But the Clippers lack identity, and that comes with time and practice. And this year was not a year to have practice time, as you kind of were just thrown into the season. You're playing 3 or 4 nights a week, and you're lucky to get a practice or 2 in if you could. And most of the time it was just a walkthrough. Just to get familiar with each other. And so I think next year is the year that Clipper fans should really get excited and look forward to some kind of growth. But anything they can do this year is just icing on the cake.
Yeah, Jacob, I was wondering, we talked a little bit earlier about the Rockets and how it might be positive for them to get in and get a little bit of playoff experience. Same thing to be said about the Clippers, that even if they don't win a series or more than that just the opportunity to go through the playoffs for the first time as a group. Obviously, Chris Paul's got a little playoff experience, but the rest of those guys on the roster outside of maybe Caron Butler really don't.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. They have a lot of young players out there. They've collected talent over the years. They've been unfortunate enough to have a lot of high draft picks, and they messed up a couple of draft picks, and they've always been a franchise that's been a laughing stock. Well, now that they have some stars, they drafted well with Blake Griffin, although he missed his rookie year. They made the big splash of Chris Paul, so now they got some pieces and no excuses going forward. So I absolutely think playoff experience together will be huge for them. And if they're not playing Memphis, then I can absolutely see them taking a playoff series. If they end up with Dallas, I like the Clippers over Dallas every day of the week. But like I said, just nobody wants to play Memphis, and they're not going to move up high enough in the seedings to play the Spurs or Thunder in the first round. So I don't see them beating them in the second. So Clippers can get out the first if they're not playing Memphis.
Jacob, you look around last night, and obviously LeBron James had a monster game. He scored the final 17 points for the Heat in the fourth quarter to come back and beat the Nets. When you see a performance like that, when you see him impose his will on another professional team the way he did last night, is there any question in your mind that not only is he the NBA's most valuable player this season, but he's the best player in the league by a fairly significant margin?
I think he is, and one of the things that people aren't talking about is his shot selection this year. He is playing in the paint, and that is the one thing that drove Cavs fans mad. You sit there and you watch this guy settle for jump shots after jump shots. There's nobody that can guard LeBron James in this league. Even today, a Paul Pierce would get embarrassed by LeBron James if LeBron took Paul down in the paint. And he can do that with anybody his size, whether it's a shooting guard, a small forward, or a power forward. LeBron is a freak of nature physically, and no one can match up to him. And it's just taken him this long to realize that his best performances come when he's in the paint, when he's aggressive, when he wants it. When he was coming up short in those Cleveland years, it's when he was settling for three-point shots or settling for the long two instead of just being aggressive and attacking the basket, because that's what he's best at. How many times do we see him do an and-one basket when someone tries to hard foul him, but he's just so strong that he gets the ball up onto the rim and it usually goes in. So I agree with you there. I think he is the best player in the league, and people who can debate that just have, personal vendettas for the guy. And whatever you think about personally, step back and look at his game, and you'll really appreciate what he brings to the table.
That's exactly what we were talking about earlier, Jacob, is that there's a lot of reasons not to like LeBron, whether it's the decision or the way that he handles himself in certain situations, and I get that, but if you remove your personal feelings for the guy, what he does on the floor, there's no one else like him.
It's phenomenal, and, everyone